Hi, I'm Tracy Soffra. Welcome to the Women of Wealth podcast, dedicated to helping women achieve financial independence and thrive in every area of her life. How to have financial intimacy in your relationship. Isn't this a juicy little topic? Let me delve deep into this particular topic in this podcast. Now, while physical and emotional intimacy are important parts of a relationship, financial intimacy is also a priority and one that we really don't talk about and, to be quite honest, feel quite uncomfortable about, I'm guessing. When you encounter these words, financial intimacy, it's not something that comes up on Valentine's Day or, in a proposal or anything like that, does it? Yet it is something absolutely worth creating with your partner. So if these concepts are entirely new to you, what I want to do is I want to share some ways of creating financial intimacy with your significant other in this particular podcast. So let's start by having a vision of what does financial intimacy look like. Financial intimacy really occurs when two people in a relationship are 100%, not 50 or 60, 100% honest with their beliefs about money. And you would be astounded. Well, maybe you wouldn't be astounded actually, because you've probably experienced it yourself and you've probably seen it with your girlfriends and your sisters and brothers and all sorts of things. But, that beliefs around money between your significant other is always going to be very, very different unless you come from a similar family background, because we all inherit our money baggage, if you like, from our families, and then we bring it into the relationship, and you've got one and he's got one, or whoever your partner may be, he or she's got one, and then you're expected to combine those things and live happily ever after. And it's kind of not a Hollywood movie, is it? And it's something that needs work like anything else in a relationship. Essentially, both partners need to align their money stuff to be able to create a healthy financial relationship with trust at its core. So when financial intimacy does exist, so it's financial intimacy, what does that mean? Just tell the truth about your money stuff, really. It's just be intimate on a monetary level. If you can create this financial intimacy, both partners can have, perfect harmony around the subject of money. But the subject of money can be, I don't know, it really depends on your stuff and their stuff, to be quite honest. And money is a highly emotionally charged topic to start with. So it can get a bit emotionally charged, but it's important to make sure that you're speaking about it, that you're clear about it, and that you can work through it. What can not having financial intimacy lead to? So let's look at the other side of the coin. Well, a lack of trust for a start. A lack of trust. And a lack of trust, we know, doesn't really work in relationships. If you're going to have a lack of trust when it comes to financial intimacy, it's going to really seep into other areas of your relationship. Not having financial intimacy can lead to secrets about debt. If you've got credit card debt, of spending money. Are you spending money without, letting the other half know? Gambling, we've seen that a lot, where certain partners have had gambling problems. It will create a financial imbalance and miscommunication between yourself and your partner. So if you want to avoid problems caused by financial infidelity, if you like, and incompatibility, the best approach for couples is to be 100% honest at each stage of the relationship. So what stages are we going to talk about? Let's talk about the dating. Let's talk about moving in together. Let's talk about marriage. Let's talk about these stages. And I've got a few tips to help you get started along the way. So if you are dating, now this is the honeymoon period, right? This is when the butterflies are going and, oh my God, I'm so excited. We're going on a date, just getting to know each other. You want to just remember those kind of feelings. It's not something you're going to ask, is it? And it's not something that's front of mind at this stage of the relationship. But what you want to be mindful of is you want to ask subtle questions to judge their views on finances. So how does your date or the person that you're dating at the moment, How do they value money? Do you share similar beliefs and financial aspirations? And you don't really have to ask these questions or these financial questions all on the first date, obviously. You're not going to. You mightn't get to the second date if you did that. Instead, notice how your date reacts when you discuss things like splitting the bill. How's that going to go down? Do they often pay with cash or credit card? And after a few dates, you can ask questions about the future. But you're going to have to gauge that, right? It's different for every couple and different for every individual as well. But are they focused on things like their future selves, about retirement? And obviously, if you're in your early 20s or 30s, you're not going to be thinking about retirement. But, if you've met someone and you're in your 40s or 50s or even 60s, what are their thoughts on retirement? What are their thoughts around money? Are they just spendthrifts and she'll be right, mate? Or is it someone that's quite tight? What are their thoughts in relation to all that? What are some of the big financial goals that they have? That will really highlight to you how they value money and how they make decisions about money. So you can use these first few dates really to determine if your financial beliefs align, and you can pick that up pretty quickly. If they don't, it's not a deal breaker necessarily. Depends how good looking they are, right, girls? Anyway, having said that, keep in mind that different financial beliefs may mean you have to have more serious conversations in the future. But make no mistake, it means you're going to have more serious conversations in the future. And really, I'd rather do it earlier than later. It really is important to bring it up and to be really clear in a non-confrontational way about where you sit and where they sit, and see if there's some sort of common ground to be met. What about if you're going to move in together? What about the moving in stage? Well, now this is a totally different ballgame to dating, right? Moving in together is a big money decision, without a doubt, because now money has to be shared at some level, doesn't it? So even if you're renting first rather than buying, there are plenty of financial chats that you have to have together, without a doubt. The first step towards financial intimacy is to discuss your money management plans. So ideally, this conversation should happen officially before you've moved in together. So don't move in and start having the conversation. Talk about the idea of moving in together. Talk about what that's going to look like financially. How will you split the bills? Will you have joint bank accounts to do that? Will you split the rent 50-50 or each pay a proportion based on your salaries? There's really no right or wrong answer here. It really is about coming together and working something out that both individuals are comfortable with and obviously are not going to be resentful about. But it's important to speak up. Do not, under any circumstances, say, oh, look, I don't really like her, but it will be okay. In the long run, it won't be okay, because when the honeymoon period wears off and when the butterflies go away and when life gets on and it's something that's bothering you, it's only going to get bigger and bigger. So be really honest and open right at the start. Right at the start. As tough as it is, it's going to be easier then than 6, 12, 24 months down the track, or 3 or 4 years, or whatever it may be down the track. The point is to have an honest discussion to make sure that you're on the road to financial compatibility. That's what's really important, and that you're comfortable with that plan. Okay, what about buying a home together? Now, this is a massive financial commitment, isn't it? Buying a home together is often the biggest step. And the big question to discuss here is the deposit, is how you're going to pay the deposit, and also consider whose name the property will be in. Now, typically it's joint when you're buying a home together. Let me just explain a couple of concepts here. Joint means that it's in joint names, and what happens when a property is in joint names, if one person passes away, the other one automatically gets their share and it becomes theirs 100%. So that does not have to be bequeathed to each other in a will. Joint ownership of a property means when one person passes away, the other one automatically owns the whole property. That's it, done. If you want some form of, if you're not happy with that and you want to identify your your share of that property. You want to do it what's called tenants in common. What that means is your share is identified by a percentage and their share is identified by a percentage. And this could be based on the deposit. So if you've got more money than your partner, say you've got 60% of the deposit and they've got 40, ideally you would get tenants in common 60-40 split. How is that different from joint tenancy? If one person passes away, they can bequeath that portion, which is either the 60 or the 40%, in their will to someone else. Okay? Now, in that particular scenario, that makes things a little bit hairy when the other person is living in that property. And say, for example, you own 60% and your partner owns 40%, and unfortunately they've passed on and they've left that 40% to their kids. That puts you in a compromised position where they say, well, we want our 40%, we want to sell. You have one of two options. You can either buy that 40% off them. You get a market valuation of what the price of the property would be and what their 40% is worth. You can either sell, which means you've got to sell the whole lot, or you buy their portion off them so you can own the whole lot. You mightn't be in a position to do that. So what you want to be talking to your solicitor about is called life tenancy, where they cannot sell that 40% until such time as you have passed. So you've got that security behind you. But they're the two different ways of owning property when you're buying a home together, and things to consider. Is it joint? Is it tenants in common? Also, so that's ownership. Then when you're looking at getting the mortgage, don't forget to discuss how you split the mortgage costs as well. So it just needs to be equal and equitable, and it needs to be clear. And if you're having trouble with any of these sorts of things, a good person to obviously speak to is your accountant. They should be able to help you down this pathway. But when you're setting up things like tenants in common and so on and so forth, you might need some legal advice as well. Factors in the cost of regular monthly bills and how you approach maintaining the property is really, really important. So I've seen clients over the years who have created a joint bank account where they put a certain amount in every single week to cover the costs of the mortgage repayments, the ongoing costs, the electricity, the gas and all that sort of stuff. So that's one common way that I've seen that people deal with it. Or you can simply get the bills, split it in half, or 60-40, or whatever the arrangement is that you come up with, but you need to come up with some sort of an arrangement to do that. And making sure that you're both committed to saving money towards the repairs and the cosmetic updates and things like that if you feel that that is something you want to do. How would that look? You might have two bank accounts. You might have one bank account that you're tucking away, $50 a week, let's say each, or $20 a week each for ongoing maintenance and cosmetic updates and things like that, if that's what you value, unless it's a brand new property, you don't need to do that, but you can still tuck away a sort of a contingency account to do that. And the other one would be the ongoing costs of running the property, which would obviously be rates, insurance, electricity, gas, and mortgage repayments and things like that. So that could be something that would work. So you need to be mindful of that, and you need to have those conversations. Yeah, again, upfront, first and foremost, rather than leaving it down the pathway of 2, 3, 4 years where it makes it more and more difficult. What about getting married, right? What happens when you get married? If you're newly engaged, then congratulations and happiness to you. But before you get carried away looking at dresses and venues and invitations and all that sort of stuff, and I know that's very, very exciting, but you need to discuss how much you plan to spend on this special day, because a marriage is not the wedding day. Yes, I know this is hard to understand for maybe the young listeners that are listening to me and have not been married before, but the wedding day is a very special day, but the marriage is for life. So discuss how much you plan to spend on that special day. You need to have that open, honest conversation. And the cost of your wedding is only one aspect of the marriage. And then the marriage begins, and hopefully it lasts forever. If you're both on the same page, you may also want to discuss the possibility of a prenup. Now, people have spoken about this, and really, probably 20, 30 years ago, it was something we heard came out of America in the movies and things like that. But it can be very, very important, very, very powerful for people who come into a marriage with a lot of assets and want to protect those assets prior to marrying somebody else. So a prenup is an agreement. It can be called a premarital agreement or prenuptial agreement. It's a binding contract. You would need to see a solicitor to do that, and it outlines what will happen to each spouse's property and financial rights if the marriage ends in divorce. And typically it is to protect those people who come into a marriage with a significant amount of property prior to marrying that other person. So, and it is a binding contract. So having certain agreements made before marriage can lead to a happy, long-lasting relationship and can really provide the clarity of where everyone stands, and you can move forward from that. Financial discussions can be uncomfortable initially. I get that. It doesn't feel really romantic, does it? It's sort of like, oh, what are we talking about this for? We love each other. Of course it's going to be fine. If you are a listener that has gone through a divorce, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not fine. Through my Wow Women programs and memberships, I hear so many stories, and they're sad and they're gut-wrenching of what some people have had to go through. So in order to mitigate any of that, be really clear, be really upfront and honest. It is just another aspect of your relationship. There is nothing embarrassing about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And I think the honesty will serve you both very, very well as time goes on. But it does get easier the more you have those conversations. Start small. Yep. Baby steps. Continue talking to your partner about money, and little by little you'll create some form of financial intimacy. Make it fun. Don't make it too serious. Be clear and create your own style around it, I guess, which is really, really important. And I guess one other thing I can add in here is just be true and honest with it. People know when you're being genuine and honest about these things, and put your cards on the table. Don't withhold and expect that person to be totally open and honest whilst you're not. Put the complete cards on the table, and that's all you can ask for. If you want help, if you need help navigating any of these tricky conversations, make sure to book a call with one of our strategists at Wow Women. Simply go to wowwomen.com.au, click on to our programs link. Best of all, the call is free with one of our strategists, and they are amazing at what they do. I've got to say, big shout out to our strategists at Wow Women. If you found this episode today to be particularly helpful, please share it with a friend, leave a review. That would be lovely. And don't forget to subscribe so you do not miss any one of our episodes. Until next time, take control of your finances and your wealth and your future.